Are communities doing all they can to combat violent crime? With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, it's me, Lawrence Fox, back in Nigel's hot seat. For tonight only, I'm afraid. But on tonight's very special show, we'll cover what our pals on the left are horrified about, but the law has given the thumbs up to, the Rwanda immigration policy. I'll also have a free speech debate on Jeremy Clarkson's comments on the difficult Duchess, as well as a crucial discussion on the case against the vaccine. And on Talking Pints, I'll be joined by a controversial star of the show that has gone viral over the last couple of years, Married at First Sight. But first, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Lawrence, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story. The Prime Minister has praised selfless dedication and bravery of British troops deployed in Estonia. Rishi Sunak has handed out the Christmas lunch to troops alongside his Estonian counterpart and spoke to UK servicemen and women there. The UK doubled its presence in Estonia in response to the build-up of Russian forces around Ukraine early this year. Mr Sunak's trip to Estonia comes as he calls on European leaders to stand firm in their support for Ukraine. Here at home, the Home Secretary says she's committed to the Rwanda deportation plan after the High Court ruled it is lawful. Speaking in the House of Commons today, Suella Braverman said the plan is a humane and practical alternative for those who come to the UK through dangerous and illegal routes. The Royal Courts of Justice ruled the policy is consistent with the International Refugee Convention, and charities have vowed to appeal today's decision, claiming the East African nation lacks a fair and efficient asylum system. The Home Secretary says we cannot tolerate people coming here illegally.
Being relocated to Rwanda is not a punishment, but an innovative way of addressing a major problem to redress the imbalance between illegal and legal migration routes. It will also ensure that those in genuine need of international protection are provided with it in Rwanda.
23-year-old Gabrielle Hutchinson has become the second woman to die following a crowd crush outside the O2 Academy, Brixton, last Thursday. The Met Police said she was working as part of the security detail at the venue. The force also said 3 women who were critically injured were all in the foyer of the building. A third woman, aged 21, remains in hospital in a critical condition. A student has been charged with threatening behaviour after eggs were thrown at the King during a trip to York last month. The King and Queen Consort were on a trip to unveil a statue in honour of the late Queen when 4 eggs were thrown at the royals, all of which narrowly missed. 23-year-old Patrick Thelwell has been charged with threatening behaviour under the Public Order Act. Mr Thelwell will appear at York Magistrates Court next month. An inquest has been hearing the 4 boys who fell into a frozen lake in Solihull died from drowning. The children, aged between 6 and 11 years old, were taken to hospital in a critical condition after being pulled from the water just over a week ago. A number of vigils have been held over the past week to pay tribute to the little boys. Now, the government is to extend its alcohol duty freeze for a further 6 months. The freeze for UK alcohol duty rates will be extended until August next year. The government says the plan aims to reassure and provide certainty to pubs, breweries and distilleries facing tough challenges. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB Plus radio. You're with GB News. Time now for Lawrence Fox in Farage.
In Ernest Hemingway's novel, The Sun Also Rises, a character called Mike is asked how he went bankrupt. His response is two ways: gradually, then suddenly. It seems a resonant line for this time, the week leading up to Christmas, the season of goodwill, as the most disruptive week of strikes so far commences. Nurses, paramedics, posties, border and railway staff, the list goes on. Both sides entrenched in position, immovable, locked in a battle which is leading us further down the path to bankruptcy. The sheer cruelty to cause such chaos in this crucial week for retailers and restaurants indicates a malice hard to ignore. As the inevitable bankruptcies in retail and entertainment sectors follow, another bankruptcy is revealed. A moral one, where the most deliberate of cruelties are imposed by one faction of society upon another. It seems we have stopped caring enough to come together and at least try to make a fist of this, our first COVID-free Christmas. This is supposed to be the season of goodwill, but gradually, and then suddenly, our goodwill towards each other has bankrupted our own spirits. But there's no point in blaming key workers for everything. Their actions are the predictable result of the greatest failed public health experiment in history. And if, as data increasingly seems to suggest, with the UK currently running 1,000 non-COVID related excess deaths a week, with no media hype whatsoever, no straplines of those unexplained corpses streaming across the bottom of your telly box or howling from every newspaper front page, no outrage for those curious, unexplained deaths, do their lives matter? Only time will tell. But how can we expect the lowest paid in society to suddenly magic up the extra cash that COVID-inflation has robbed them of? 10% is a conservative estimate of soaring prices, a direct result of needlessly locking down the country for 2 years and the £500 billion poured into our economy and stirred around to dilute the value of our currency that we require so desperately to transact with. Last week, Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen used parliamentary privilege to detail another form of moral bankruptcy, which slowly, then suddenly, has enveloped us. Many knew from the start, either by intuition or data, that there was something not quite right about the pandemic and the regime's handling of it. Emergency measures, mandated procedures, legislatively from the Commons or via the supercharged media propaganda machine of shaming and coercion. Totalitarian tactics, not seen in peacetime, were heaped upon a population so relentlessly as the doommongers predicted hundreds of thousands of deaths, fabricated entire, never used, hospitals to face this incoming tragedy. But there was a way out, we were told, a new and beautiful dawn, as fresh and experimental mRNA treatments were hastily rushed out to protect us from each oncoming wave of this deadly virus with a 99.7% survival rate. Debate was shut down. Alternative solutions, which may have prevented the very real bankruptcy we now find ourselves in, were sullied and dismissed. But back to Mr. Bridgen. He claims that he's been approached by a whistleblower with information that research conducted by Professor Antionides, Professor of Cardiovascular Medicine at the University of Oxford, revealed that there was a link between these miracle jabs and inflammation of the coronary arteries. Mr. Bridgen told the Commons that the same whistleblower had informed him that a number of colleagues working under Professor Antionides may have also been issued with non-disclosure agreements in relation to their research findings. I make no assertion of fact here, other than to be grateful that the Bad Law Project, on behalf of Mr. Bridgen and the hundreds of thousands around this country who may have been harmed by these experimental treatments, will receive clarification from Professor Antionides as the results of his research and an understanding of if and why non-disclosure agreements were implemented regarding research, which is undoubtedly in the public interest. This correspondence was sent to the professor this morning, and CUREC, Oxford University's ethics committee, whose codes of conduct require, and I quote, people be fully informed about the purpose and intended possible uses of research, what their participation involves, and details of any risks and burdens, end quote, were also copied in. I think it's time that we all hope that this is an exercise in clarity and transparency, rather than another example of the gradual moral bankruptcy of being selective with the truth becoming a sudden moral bankruptcy of actively misleading an entire nation. The truth couldn't be more important, as now these jabs have been approved for anyone still in a nappy. So, I am asking you tonight, would you take the vaccine now? Let me know your thoughts by email, farage@gbnews.uk, or tweet me, #Farage on GB News. Right, before we delve into that though, let's bring ourselves up to speed with what's been happening in the courts and the Commons today, just days after 4 people tragically drowned in the Channel after a small boat got into difficulty just off the coast of Dungeness. The High Court have ruled that the government's plan to send some migrants to Rwanda is lawful. At least 45,458 people have crossed the Channel illegally so far this year. This afternoon in the Commons, Home Secretary Suella Braverman defended the scheme, which she says they'll deliver at scale as soon as possible. But before we get into the Rwanda deal, a GB News exclusive. In his first full interview since the tragedy, Raymond Strachan told GB News British authorities have been acting as a migrant taxi service, encouraging ever-increasing numbers of people to make the journey. Our Home and Security Affairs editor Mark White has also obtained more exclusive images of Wednesday's rescue operation. A warning to you, you may find parts of this report difficult to watch.
Out in the pitch black of the English Channel, the sound of panicked cries for help. The 6-man crew of the scallop boat Arcturus rush to help as they come alongside the stricken migrant boat. These images are deeply disturbing, but they highlight the very real dangers for these flimsy vessels and the quick thinking and bravery of local fishermen turned rescuers.
If we wasn't there, probably 45 people dead without any trace. Nobody was knowing they was there. I looked over the side, there was about 5 or 6 migrants hanging off the side of the boat.
For Raymond's crew, it was their training and instinct to help that kicked in.
It's not an easy task to try to pull a panicking person out of the water when they're fully clothed, soaking wet. When the other migrants in the dinghy seen they was getting rescued, they started swimming towards the boat.
There was, Raymond says, huge relief when the lifeboats and Coast Guard helicopters reached the scene.
It doesn't matter your political views on the migrant crisis. When you see people in the water screaming, shouting, begging for their life, if you've any compassion at all, the human nature thing to do is to rescue people. And that's what we did.
On board the Arcturus, although these survivors were rescued, they were clearly hypothermic. The scallop boat's crew got them out of their wet clothes and into warm showers before giving them their dry clothes and some hot food. Outside, the fast rescue boat from the Royal Navy's offshore patrol vessel HMS Severn joined in the search for other survivors. As on board the fishing boat, medics checked over those rescued. Raymond Strachan said the events of Wednesday morning were inevitable. Like all local fishing crews, they regularly see migrant boats and often have to help. Like here in January, when the Arcturus had to stand by alongside 2 inflatables near Dungeness while they waited for UK authorities to arrive on scene. And that same month, this astonishing sight of 5 young men crammed in a tiny inflatable rowing across the Channel without an onboard motor and not a single life jacket among them.
I've seen 5 successful crossings last Sunday. Then you get the UK government saying they're getting send patrol boats out to stop the crossings. Well, I see the patrol boats there, but I just see them like a taxi service. That's what it is.
Although Wednesday saw tragedy in the Channel, Raymond says it won't act as a deterrent to these crossings. He and his crew expect to see many more migrant boats out here in the months ahead. Mark White, GB News.
Reporting news others are too frightened to. Our Home and Security Editor Mark White there. Well, joining me now is immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson. Ivan, are you surprised by this move by Suella Braverman?
It's a sad day both for this country and for the English courts. I was surprised by the ruling because Rwanda is clearly not a safe country. There's overwhelming evidence in various human rights reports which supports that assertion. What the courts had to decide was two issues today. First is, can the government treat those who they say are illegal, because there's no such thing as illegal asylum seekers, could they treat their claims as inadmissible? And it becomes...
There are legitimate and illegitimate, though.
There are, but we're talking about genuine asylum seekers. So...
What's a genuine asylum seeker?
Those that come within the Refugee Convention, for one of the Convention reasons.
From a war-torn country where they...
Yes.
Not Albania.
Not Albania. Look, Albania, there's policies that we have to treat Albanians, and we can remove them fairly swiftly. So what the government's position was is that these people who come across the channel, their claims are inadmissible because they failed to claim asylum in the first safe country they were in. And because of that, they can either be removed to that country or sent to another country, i.e. Rwanda. And so what the claimants were arguing was that policy is unlawful. The second issue is Rwanda a safe country to send them to? And the government won on both points. What's telling, though, is what the court said about the processing of these asylum seekers, that their claims weren't properly processed, the claims weren't properly considered, and that sort of smacks to the incompetence of the Home Office. They're so focused on sending people, relocating them to Rwanda, they don't even consider their claims properly.
What would you do instead?
Well, give them a proper chance to present their case. So, and it's not just about what they say, but it's about the decision-making itself. In my experience, 30 years I've been doing this, the starting point of the Home Office is how can we refuse this application? That's where they start. And then they look at ways that they can't refuse it. So we've got to be fair and treat each application fairly and consider it fairly, which the Home Office has failed to do.
And what do you think is coming next then? So how many more people are going to need to die before?
Well, it won't deter the numbers coming up. In fact, next year, and quote me on this, I estimate there'll be 100,000 people coming across the channel. You will not deter people coming because they're coming from desperate situations. And all you're going to have is, OK, we're sending people to Rwanda. And the second thing is, how many people will we send to Rwanda? The Shadow Home Secretary, she asked that question, and Suella Braverman didn't respond to that. The equivalent policy is the one in Australia called Operation Sovereign. And if I'm not mistaken, the cost per person relocated ran into $1 million Australian dollars.
Yeah, but the principle stands. Now, finally, can you tell me whether we're going to see flights to Rwanda?
Not in the foreseeable future, because there's an appeal pending, and that's going to happen in January. But even when they consider each of these cases that have come before the court, they themselves will be able to judicially review that. There'll be appeal rights. So I'm afraid you're not going to see flights going off very quickly.
Well, there we are. Thank you, immigration lawyer Ivan Sampson. OK, here we go. Buckle up, team. Next, a free speech row. It's what we do best here. It's what I love. Was Jeremy Clarkson right to say he dreamt of people throwing excrement at Please don't write this stuff. We'll discuss in a few minutes. Right back.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello, welcome back. A row has erupted over Jeremy Evil Clarkson's column in The Sun about Meghan Markle at the weekend. The Grand Tour presenter compared the Duchess of Sussex to serial killer Rose West, something that even I think is a bit of an overreaction, and that he dreams of people throwing excrement at her. I think it's sort of Game of Thrones thing, but I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I wouldn't know. Anyway, Jezza has since issued a statement, not an apology, I must emphasise, in which he said he was horrified to cause so much hurt and would be more careful in future. Well, with me to discuss this free speech debate is Tessa Dunlop, historian, broadcaster and author of the new book, Elizabeth and Philip. Tessa, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
I get the feeling that you're going to interrogate me here.
No, I was just disappointed with a tweet that I felt rather clumsily popped out, suggesting that on the one hand, yes, Jeremy Clarkson's comments were misogynist and rather unpleasant, but on the other hand, and here you abused history, you were going to defend his right to freedom of speech. It was the altar you were prepared to die on, and you reminded us with a sort of, jackboot analogy that 60 to 100 million people had died in the Second World War to protect our freedoms of speech.
Not the Second World War.
Well, in the last century.
No. The 60 to 100 million I was referring to were the corpses laid at the feet of the Marxists who controlled and compelled speech and turned people into group thinkers.
Right.
So you missed the point of my tweet.
I missed it. Well, indeed. Well, then you must craft your tweets.
Anyway, let's leave my tweets alone, and you tell me why this is dreadful.
Well, it's extraordinary that someone like you, with such a fine public school education, is lumbering under the misconception that we have complete freedom of speech. If I was a paedophile or a terrorist or a fascist, you wouldn't be platforming me right now. If I was inciting hatred against a different race or religion or someone of transgender or disability, I would not be platformed. That would be illegal. So it's a nonsense to suggest we have to let everyone spew out filth and poison left, right and centre, especially men with disproportionately large platforms. And let me tell you, dear Loza, there's an awful lot of you. I don't find it acceptable. And I think what you did was disingenuous.
Well, I condemned the way he spoke and then defended his right to free speech.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
it was almost like saying, you know, let's pat him on the head and put him back in his box. Except his box.
That's not what I said.
But it is what you said.
No. That's how you felt about what I said. What I actually said, was look, and you're looking at someone who really doesn't like Meghan Markle and doesn't like that spoiled.
Oh no, let's not go back to. I can't hear another thin-skinned, slightly ageing white man be demeaning about Meghan Markle. Not when we've just gone global with one of our leading celebrities wanting to throw excrement at her when she's naked paraded down the street.
I completely agree with you. I think we're agreeing. So let's try and find somewhere where.
Well, no, I can tell you we're not agreeing.
I'm agreeing with you that what he said was something I would see as being well above and beyond what I think free speech is there for. But I would ask you the question: do you think that the opposite of that, denying him the right to be so crude and disgusting and misogynistic, is better?
It is currently illegal to stir up hatred against, and I gave you some of the categories, race, religion, disability, sexual orientation. I would like gender to be one of those categories.
What is gender?
There was my gender as a woman, my sex. I want it to be better protected.
Yeah, but I'm confused. What's gender? You're a woman.
I'm a woman.
Yeah.
If you are... And Jeremy Clarkson, the way he wrote that article, he was very clever. He knows you can't stir up hatred against Meghan Markle on the basis of her race. But she was posited throughout that article very much on the basis of her femininity. She had, to use Donald Trump's expression, whipped her husband, Harold Markle, into his subservient position. She'd basically brainwashed him, but he hated her more than he compared her to two other women, to Nicola Sturgeon and to the murderer, Rose West. So this was about Meghan Markle's femininity. He then asked us to imagine her naked. So he wants to take a woman and us to imagine her naked, and he then wants to shame her and parade her down the street and throw excrement at her. That is hatred towards women, and I don't think that's acceptable.
Look, I agree with you.
Yes, so let's change the law.
No.
Yes.
No, that's where I don't agree with you.
Why not change the law?
Because I don't think it's illegal to hate people.
But do you know, the problem is, what happens otherwise is big bears like you, Jeremy Clarkson, Piers Morgan...
Hang on a minute,
No, because actually, on this occasion, you've said, whoa, I wouldn't even say that. But generally, you like to poke with a stick. You go as far as you can. You push the right-wing envelope. And as I've explained, you men, Nigel Farage, Dan Wootton, have disproportionately large platforms. You get little me's on, a doctor incidentally, but nonetheless just a little woman, and you bear bait us for clicks. Clickety-click, clickety-click. And actually, Jeremy Clarkson will be emboldened by this, and I want to stop it.
You. I'm not even. You see, this is, I think, one of the problems that men will have. It's like I'm condemning what he said, and I'm saying that on a philosophical level, I protect everybody's right to free speech. I think it's better.
Everybody's right. You want paedophiles, fascists. You want racists. Do you really want everyone to have freedom of speech?
What's the option? What's the alternative?
At the moment, they're enshrined in law is actually to be protected against fascists and paedophiles.
So it's enshrined in law. So we just leave it. I found what he said abhorrent. I didn't find it abhorrent. I thought it was clumsy and crap. Ooh, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it was dreadful, and I condemned it. And I don't see why I'm getting a lecture for supporting you.
Because you've come out on Twitter saying, you've said there, OK, with where freedom of speech is at the moment, and I'm saying, but it's not good enough. Because actually what this does is emboldens misogynists. Someone like Jeremy Clarkson now, he got his grand tour mentioned on your television. The Sun's probably not sold so many since 1990.
It's probably why he did it.
Well, exactly. And I'm saying that is not acceptable. And the way to stop it is to change the law.
Stop with the law changing.
Knock little men off their platforms like you.
Little man? I thought I was a big man. A bear, you said I was.
Because you have a big platform, darling.
All right, darling.
Will I scuttle out of your cave now and leave you in your cave?
It's not a cave. You're more than welcome to stay.
I've been quite angry. You make me angry, Lawrence.
Well, I'm very sorry. I've literally said nothing.
You didn't have to. Just by sitting in for Nigel Farage, darling.
Some girls, eh? Anyway, thank you.
A doctor.
Dunlop. I did say doctor. Historian, writer and broadcaster. Coming up next, I'm trying to speak.
I'm putting you off.
Coming up next, should the mRNA COVID vaccines be banned? That's what one MP is arguing, and he joins me shortly. Back soon. If you see cat scratches on my face, it's Tessa's fault.
I don't...
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. I just had to go and spend some time in my safe space. That was... Anyway, earlier in the show, I asked you, would you take the vaccine now? Carl says, for those of us who haven't even had it and have never been ill, yet been around all those that have, why would we? We have been inoculated already and didn't die, so what's the point? I'm kind of with you, Carl. It's called the olden days. John says, I've had my fourth jab a month or so ago, and now I have health issues. OK, maybe that's a lesson. Another viewer says, not a chance. Right, here we are. We're getting a consensus. Nick says, yes, I had my first vaccine just 3 weeks ago. Nick, why would you have your first vaccine just 3 weeks ago at the end of the pandemic? Anyway, Adam says, of course, anyone who didn't get vaccinated helped spread COVID and put others' lives at risk. Nick, mate, you know the doesn't prevent transmission or infection bit? That's the one you need to be looking at. Anyway, always email me at Farage at GB News UK or tweet using the hashtag Farage on GB News. So, most importantly and most excitingly for me this evening, because I love truth, last week Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen held a debate in the House of Commons. Did you notice how many people turned up, as opposed to the ones that turned up on MPs' pay rises? Anyway, never mind. Calling for any further rollout of mRNA COVID-19 vaccines to be halted, claiming these particular jabs to be unsafe, ineffective, and also questioning the integrity of the vaccine's developers and various established medical bodies. Mr. Bridgen's claims face strong rebuttals by both Health Minister Maria Caulfield as well as various fact-checkers. Let's take a listen to the session in Parliament last Tuesday.
As the data clearly shows, to anyone who wants to look at it, the mRNA vaccines
they're not safe, they're not effective, and they're not necessary. I implore the government to halt their use immediately, and as I've demonstrated, and the data clearly shows, the government's current policy on the mRNA vaccines is on the wrong side of medical ethics. It's on the wrong side of scientific data, and ultimately, Madam Deputy Speaker, it will be on the wrong side of history.
The COVID vaccines have saved tens of thousands of lives and prevented hundreds of thousands of people being hospitalised, and certainly reduced the likelihood of someone dying from it. I completely debunk this conspiracy theory that there's a whole group of people benefiting financially from the rollout of this vaccine.
Well, unsurprisingly, that debate has opened the floodgates for discussions and probing into safety, efficacy and morality surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine, and sparked a backlash from those who believe his claims could compromise people's safety. So what drove Andrew Bridgen to raise this issue in Parliament? And on what evidence is he basing his claims? He joins me now. Andrew, why does this matter to you so much?
I'm not anti-vax. I'm double vax with AstraZeneca, but I've looked at the evidence as it's come out around the side effects and harms, and I think the matters, actually now the evidence is overwhelming. You know, we've had almost 500,000 yellow card adverse events. That's more yellow card adverse events on mRNA vaccines than all the yellow card issues of the last 40 years. This is really significant. We've got unexplained excess death rates, cardiac arrests increasing in the under 40s, and no one seems to want to talk about it. What we do know as well is that we've not had normal scientific analysis of the efficacy and effectiveness of the vaccines, because that was banned when they came out. Anyone who questioned the efficacy or the safety was shut down. That's not the way science works, Lawrence. Science has to work by challenge.
It's an ever-evolving thing. But then what would you say to those who say, I will check your science, I will fact-check your science? What would you say to those people?
Well, there is an annoying firm called Fact Checkers, and they're...
I deal with them every day.
They're apparently funded by Facebook, and we all know who funds that. So they've certainly got an angle to... an axe to grind on this. They've got a dog in the fight. It's very hard to get impartial news now, and that's why I end up on GB News so often.
What's turned it around for you? So, you know, you have a good voting record on some things, you know, a less us side of the argument on other things. What's turned it around for you? What's made you come over to this side of the conversation that, you know, I live on personally, but GB News doesn't represent, but that's my view. What's brought you around?
Well, it's not about politics. I'm considered this hard right-winger by most people in Parliament. But this issue, when you're talking about the health of the population, and when policy is now to extend these experimental vaccines to children of the age of 6 months, where all the evidence from America testing on under 5 show that 1 in 100 will be seriously hospitalised over this.
But that is disputed.
It's not about right or left. This is about right and wrong. And
I get it. No, sorry, I'm with you. It is about right or wrong. You should not be throwing jabs in 6-month-old children.
But no benefit to them whatsoever.
But what I want to do is make sure that the argument is solid as possible. That is disputed, that claim.
OK,
that it's 1 in 100.
The esteemed cardiologist, Dr. Asim Malhotra, produced a paper which he presented in Parliament 3 months ago. It's been all around the world. It's had lots of coverage here and in the USA. There's been no scientific rebuttal of his claims that the vaccines are no longer effective. They're no longer necessary because you know, the virus attenuated itself a year ago to become the Omicron variant, which is a bad cold for most people. You'd have to vaccinate 7,300 over 80s to prevent 1 COVID death. Well, when you've got, by Pfizer's own figures, 1 in 800 severe adverse events, the harm you're doing by the vaccination is greater than the good. The risk-benefit, even for over 80s, is the wrong side of the equation. And for anyone under 40, countries like Denmark, a very sensible country, they've banned all vaccinations and boosters for anyone under 50. They've looked at the risk-benefit of the vaccine. We're not.
How deep do you think this rabbit hole goes?
Well, let's find out. But at the moment, the mainstream media won't even look into it.
Why is that, do you think? Because I was just going to say, I was going to have a human rights lawyer on this evening from the Bad Law Project, and just before we went on air, she was advised by her chambers that she wasn't to appear because there would be repercussions should she do so. So it is very difficult to talk about this issue. And for me, what that instills
means we must talk about it.
Is that we've got to talk about
Absolutely.
it. And why are we so scared of it? But what are we doing here? What do you want to achieve?
Well, there are some bad actors in all of this. I've been approached by very senior executives of other esteemed news organisations, and they've said, yep, we know it's a huge problem, I'm well aware of it, and yet if I discussed it in my office, I would fear I'd lose my job. This is not a free press in this country. We're suppressing silence on vaccine harms and the risks around the vaccine. It's more contagious than COVID-19 ever was.
Well, exactly. And Rishi Sunak has said, I believe these vaccines are safe, right? Then, confronted with a new set of evidence and new sets of data, why is Rishi Sunak not updating his
He'll be
model?
taking advice from his advisors. There's a lot of money involved in all of this, and there's a lot of political capital being invested by people in all of this. But at the end of the day, I think if anyone looks at the data, and we have any sort of investigation at all, it's clear that the rollout of these mRNA experimental vaccines should be suspended. And they're still on an emergency authorisation. I'm absolutely convinced the reason they're still on emergency authorisation, despite we've 3 years into this supposedly having known about COVID-19, is because if they were approved for general usage, the analysis that has to happen of adverse effects would mean they'd be shut down within a week. In 1976, the swine flu vaccine was withdrawn for 1 in 100,000 adults having Guillain-Barré syndrome as a result. In 1999, the rotavirus vaccine was withdrawn because 1 in 10,000 children had a reaction and got a bowel obstruction.
And we've got 500,000.
So we've done it. We've withdrawn vaccines before, but no one could ask any questions about these mRNA vaccines. I mean, effectively, the AstraZeneca vaccine has actually been withdrawn.
We've got two ways of looking at this. For me, you've got Mark Twain. It's easy to fool people. It's harder to convince them they've been fooled, or we go, the vaccine has saved more lives. And I am very grateful to you for making sure that this is a mainstream public debate held in the most important democratic house in this country. Andrew Bridgen, thank you very much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me on.
Right, thank you, Andrew Bridgen, Conservative MP for North West Leicestershire. Coming up on GB News, the tavern doors are open, and we will be speaking to Married at First Sight star and mental health advocate Thomas. I love it. Autocues still haven't got there. We are back after this. See you in a bit. Love.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Co.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Are authorities, are communities doing all they can to combat violent crime? With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
The GB News Tavern is now open. Hurrah! It's time for Talking Pints. I'm joined by Thomas Hartley. You may remember him from this scene in Married at First Sight.
Do you want to have children? Mm-hmm. Would you want to adopt? Do you want, like, boys, girls?
Like a boy and a girl.
Would you?
Yeah.
You're solid on that?
No, not solid on it. I think
How
it's
old are you?
31. Adrian, talk to me. It's me and you that have got married, not me and Casey.
Do you want a dog?
Oh,
Is that your dream, to have a home with a dog and a child?
my dream is to have a lovely life with my partner and have all these conversations with them about it.
There he is, Thomas Hartley, star of Married at First Sight. Cheers, Thomas.
Cheers.
How are you doing, love?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm all right. You said that you're going to give me a little bit of a lecture. It's give Loz a lecture night.
Well, it's not give you a lecture, but I think, to establish some of your opinions and maybe have them explained to me better than what they are portrayed in the media. I would hope that that isn't what you really believe.
Interview me.
Well, some of the things that you've said about trans people, you're not a gay man, so I don't think that, sort of saying LGB without the T is...
I'm a bit gay.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, everyone's a bit gay.
But do you identify as a gay man?
No, I don't.
No. How do you identify, Lawrence?
I identify as Lawrence.
OK, but sexuality, how do you identify?
I'm straight.
Right,
yeah.
OK. So you're not really in a position to be able to say that trans people haven't paved the way for our civil rights and human rights because you aren't a gay person?
I think anyone can have an opinion on
You are entitled to your opinion, of course you are, but, to sort of eradicate a whole community of people from that.
Having an opinion's not eradicating.
Well,
people.
it's inciting a little bit of hate towards a community of people, isn't it?
What is?
Well, saying that trans women aren't women.
They're not women.
They are.
They're blokes.
They're not.
They are.
They're not.
OK, just quickly help me out with this. What is a woman?
Somebody who tells you that they're a woman, who identifies as a woman, whose driving licence, birth certificate.
Which is what? What is a woman? The thing that they identify as.
What is a woman?
Yeah. I said what is a woman. Mm-hmm. You said someone who identifies as a woman.
Yeah.
And I went, OK, what is that? What is?
So, well, if I said to you now, Lawrence, that I feel like in my head I'm a woman and I'm going to transition through medically or otherwise.
What is that?
What is a woman? Well, how would you define a woman? And then I'll...
An adult human female born with a vagina, ovaries...
So it's defined by their genitals?
X, whichever one chromosomes it is. Yeah.
Right, so you think... So scientifically that is what a woman is, isn't it? Yeah. But in today's, in the law and the way we live in this country... If somebody tells you they're a woman and their birth certificate and driving licence says it, and they go through all of that persecution from people...
What is a woman? You tell me.
But my definition of a woman is somebody who tells me and lives their life as a woman.
Right. What is that?
Well, how do you identify?
I'm a man.
OK, so you're a man. That's fine. I'm not going to question it. It's got nothing to do with me.
Is?
No, because it'll be the same as what you think a woman is a person who's born with a penis. So you're defining somebody's gender by their genitals. I don't do that.
Or sex by their genitals, yeah.
OK.
There is a small proportion of people who are born into sex. I would. Anyway, look, I like it.
Good.
I like it.
Me too.
I don't think you're selling it brilliantly.
I didn't think you
were. But I like it.
And that's, you know what?
Okay,
Variety is the spice of life.
What else don't you like about me?
I just think I don't know where this... I used to think a lot of you, I thought you were a really good actor, and now it's disappointing.
What?
Because aren't you from like a really artsy, liberal background, and you're so right-wing, it's like...
What's right-wing about what I think?
That was right-wing, what you've just said there.
What, defending the rights of women?
Well, you're not defending the rights of women because no one's challenging the rights of women.
Well,
who's challenging them?
Well, I mean, I don't want a biological man, in a woman's only space. I'd say that was defending the rights of women.
But a biological man is...
the definition of a woman to be redefined as a person with a vagina, all the female chromosomes, all of this stuff, to be suddenly redefined.
But would you go up to somebody and say, can you please expose yourself to me so I know exactly what is in between?
Because it's not about that. It's about I tolerate and appreciate everybody. But it's not right-wing to point out biological fact. It just isn't.
Well, and you're entitled to point out what your biological fact is, and I understand that, and somebody might be born, in the wrong body, and I understand that completely, but then it's not also your right to be able to tell somebody who is born in the wrong body that they are not a man or a woman.
So is it your right to tell me what my rights are?
No, it isn't, and I wouldn't... But me personally, you're not... part of the community to say, it's LGBT without the T. That's not how it was.
I'm part of the human community.
You are part of the human community, but the LGBTQIA community, you are not part of.
I'm not part of the LGBTQ... No. You don't know that?
I've just asked you how you identify, and you just said straight.
So I'm not allowed in that club?
No, you can be an ally, but you're not being an ally with your opinions.
Oh, that's a shame. How do I become an ally?
Well, maybe... be more open-minded and treat people as they want to be treated. And
I do treat people how they want to be treated. I don't bother with people. I just don't lecture other people as they lecture.
And you know what? I would not lecture you. I'm just giving you my opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. I completely disagree with it.
I appreciate it. OK, is there any way we can find some loving companionship to when we could go out and have a beer together?
No.
Never?
No.
So does that maybe an indicator of the fact that I might not have the problem?
I haven't got a problem. I just wouldn't surround myself with someone who had the opinions that you have.
Do you know what my opinions are?
On that basis alone is enough for me not to...
Blokes can't be birds?
That's your opinion, isn't it?
No, that's...
And it's not... Well, no, that's not what I believe.
You don't have to believe it. I'm saying, are there opportunities for you and me to go and have a beer?
We can talk about something else, perhaps. I think that would maybe help you if you were surrounded by these people to understand fully, what they've gone through and to come to the point that they're at in their life. Maybe you're just not well-versed with that.
Well-versed with what?
Transgender people and the way the persecution they've faced and the medical transition they've got to go through and their brains and the studies that have been done on that. I don't think maybe you're just not in the know. That's not something that you concern yourself with, and that's where your opinions come from.
Well, it seems you've already had a bit of difficulty tonight describing what a woman is. So that circular argument thing of going, a woman is what a woman thinks. So I'm a woman because I think I'm a woman. That's a circular argument.
Well, you're saying think. If somebody is looking at themselves and they've got gender dysphoria, which is a diagnosed issue, isn't it?
Just go back to the next argument, which is like, if I identify as a person with no right arm, why can't a doctor cut my arm off?
Because that's not you being dysphoric over it's gender dysphoria. It's not limb dysphoria, is it? OK, so body dysmorphia, so you would go and have therapy or treatment for that, whether it be medical or otherwise.
So why don't people go and have therapy and treatment for being...
They do. There's a year where they've got to live as a woman before they will medically intervene with hormones.
Live as a transgender woman?
OK, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. But to me, I treat a transgender woman the same way I would treat...
So do I. And so does the rest of the population. You just
no, they don't.
Yeah,
no, they do not.
Tell me. I think the difference here is you just can't tell me that bloke is a bird.
I can.
Because it's not true.
To you.
To the 99% of the population.
No.
They will tolerate and respect and love and give huge amounts of love to the transgender community, as we have throughout the whole history of the UK, right up with what all the great work Stonewall did in bringing gay and lesbian rights right into the forefront. And we have really tolerant, wonderful, welcome.
Why have you got to tolerate me then?
Because that's the junction.
So, but I should be tolerating you because you're opposed. It works both ways.
You've had a go at me. Let me have a go at you.
Go for it.
All right. Tolerance is democracy relies on tolerance. I don't have to agree with you.
No, you don't.
Tolerate you, right?
Yeah.
What I can't do is be told by you or by anybody else that a bloke is a girl. Anyway, it was a great pleasure talking to you, and thanks for the lecture.
And vice versa.
Thomas Hartley! God, I've had it hard tonight, haven't I?
You deserve it.
Star... Thanks, Dal. Star of Married at First Sight. Right, coming up next, it's Patrick Christie's in for Mark Stein. Get well soon, Mark. We're sending our prayers and love to you.
Yes, we do all send our best for Mark Stein, don't we? Right, I've got loads coming up. Lawrence, great show, by the way. Thoroughly enjoyed all this back and forth, but yeah. I am asking why Gary Neville is such a tit. I'm also going to be talking about whether or not people do play the race card. What's going on with the Rwanda plan? Is it lawful? Is it not lawful? Well, it is lawful, but is it going to make a blind bit of difference? And loads more as well. EU corruption. Lawrence will wheeling out all the old classics tonight, mate. It's going to be a cracker.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. After a pretty gloomy Monday, brighter skies for most on Tuesday, still fairly breezy, a little cooler, but still temperatures are going to be above average and way above where they were this time last week. Wet and windy spells coming courtesy of this area of low pressure, sending weather fronts our way, bringing quite heavy rain through the evening and overnight across southern England, where we do have a Met Office yellow rain warning in place. That rain at times affecting South Wales up towards the Midlands and across to the east, whereas much